thing that happened. Mecca and Medina. Mecca and Medina under the Ismailis, that's exactly what happened. They took Mecca and they took Medina. Can you imagine? Mecca and Medina being under those type of people? Here's the worst part. The Ismailis themselves, they fought. Subsects developed. A subsect of them, they themselves split. A part of them, called the Qaramita, split and started fighting. So you have now two Ismaili groups fighting. And the Qaramita won, and they entered Mecca. Ibn Kathir describes that scene. And there is a reason why I'm telling this. Are we that bad today? Their leader enters Mecca, enters Al-Kaaba. He finds people doing Hajj. What does he do? He starts killing everybody. He's killing the Hujjaj around Bayt al-Haram. And according to Ibn Kathir, he's saying the following, astaghfirullah. But look at the audacity. أنا الله, أنا أنا. أنا أحيي الناس وأفنيهم أنا. I am Allah, I'm God, me. I give people life and I take it away from them, me. He killed the Hujjaj, and Ibn Kathir says he took the bodies, threw them in the well of Zamzam. Are we that bad today? You see what I'm speaking about? This, you would have thought, what? This is our history. And he did something else. The black stone in the Kaaba, guess what happened? He took it out of the Kaaba. And he took it to his city in Bahrain. The Kaaba stayed without the black stone for 20 years. Did you know that? That's how bad, and nobody can do anything. The Khalifa is so weak. Those people are there. You have the Kaaba without the black stone. This is how terrible things were at that time. Those are the challenges that Salahuddin will eventually have to face. Right? It didn't stop there. And I'll say this, and inshallah we'll stop for Salah. And again, I'll stop at a specific point. They eventually looked at Baghdad. If we can take Baghdad, the city of the Khilafah, we're done. And again, they started spreading their madhab, and very interesting what they did, by the way. They started spreading their madhab, and by the way, one of the groups that also appeared, okay, let me say this first. And hold this maybe after Salah. So they started spreading their madhab, and one of their leaders, Al-Basasiri, revolted and captured the Khalifa in Baghdad and removed the Khalifa from power. And at this point, it looked that those people are going to dominate. And things looked very dark. Yet, there was hope. Hope came in a group of new people. New people that were still zealous. Who knows who those people are? They rescued the day. Anybody can guess. They weren't Arabs, by the way. Turks, close. Not the Ottomans, by the way. We're speaking 400 years. So far, the Ottomans are still far away. Yes, close, I think.
The European
Okay, Seljuks. Seljuk. Those were a new group, a new converts to Islam, Sunni. They're very zealous about Islam. They have issues. But when it comes to Islam and their attitudes about La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, they had some strength in a military sense. When they saw the Khalifa fall, they intervened. They attacked, they restored the Khalifa, they brought him back in power, but as a puppet. The Khalifa is there, but the ruler now is the Seljuk Empire. Right? Hope came from them. A man that appeared in this time. This man is responsible for Salahuddin. And this man, many of us know, is a great historic Muslim figure. He is not the ruler, he's the wazir. His name is Nizam al-Mulk. Who's Nizam al-Mulk? That was the wazir of the Seljuk Empire. And he was a man of piety. He loved Islam. He prayed every prayer in his time. If Adhan is called, he will stop whatever he's doing and pray. He used to pray sunnahs. He fasts Mondays and Thursdays. Every day when he wakes up, he starts his day 100 dinars in charity. He loved ilm. And he saw something. He said, this is not a war of, a Seljuks versus the Ismailis. The ideology needs to be fought. They have an ideology. People are confused. And the way to fight this, the hearts of the people must be reformed. So he started an initiative. What was it? The Nidamiyya schools. Here you have the Nidamiyya order, right? It's coming from this man. So what he did is he said, scholars need to be honored. So in every big city, Baghdad, Mysore, any city, he would establish a huge school, which a huge endowment. Anybody that wants to study is free. You want to study Islam, and the scholars that he got, Al-Qushayri, Imam al-Juwayni, the greatest scholars, he got them, raised them so much, gave them so much of a high salary, made them so honored. He honored scholars and brought them together. Do something. Wake up Muslims. We need to confront that ideology. So he started a school. One of the people, an interesting story, and I will stop here. Interesting story that happened in the time. There was this man, righteous man, has 2 kids, worshipper of Allah. He grew old and he's about to die. So he told one of his friends, when I die, please take care of my children. He gave him some money. He passed away. So that other righteous man took the 2 kids, did his best, but the money ran out. And he looked at those 2 kids and said, look, I don't have any money left. The only thing I can see, why don't you guys go to the school? Nidamiyya school. They will not only teach you Islam, they will have spend on you. You will have a good life, and they will teach you your deen. Right? And he sends them to that school. One of them happens to be who? Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. You know the great Imam al-Ghazali? That was Imam al-Ghazali. He studied with al-Juwayni, he studied with Imam al-Qushayri in the Nidamiyya school. Imam al-Ghazali grew up in this environment. He's the one that confronted al-Falasifa wal-Batiniyya. He's the one that wrote a book. He actually went and studied the Ismaili method fully. And then he wrote a book called The Scandals of the Ismailis, or The Scandals of the Batiniyya. And it became like the textbook of Muslims that went and he kind of demolished their creed. Then he studied the other area of conflict, which is philosophy. There was too much philosophy rooted in Greek philosophy, not in Islam. And it was causing a lot of, and nobody could confront them. They're very logical, right? So he studied philosophy. And then he wrote a book, Maqasid al-Falasifa, the intent of the philosophers. And the philosophers were like, oh, that's a genius, that's a philosopher like us. Then he wrote a book, The Incoherence of the Philosophers. Right? So Imam al-Ghazali appeared, and that was an intellectual blow for like he confronted this type. And other scholars started those schools that Nizam al-Mulk did, as you will see, they are the ones that generated scholars that will eventually lead to Salahuddin. When? A century later. You see what I said? As a matter of fact, I was reading a book, secular book, written by secular people, not Muslims, and they're studying the era of the Crusades and what happened, how the Muslims were successful, and how the Muslims confronted the Mongols, and who was behind it all. The conclusion of the book, one line: the madrasa saved Islam. See where it starts? Ilm, endowments, school. It takes time. That was the seed that caused the change. Right. One more thing. I'll say this and we'll stop because this is an interesting part. I'm sorry it takes 2 minutes more. Another sect formed at the time that was very serious. What was it? The Ismailis, remember they're fighting among each other? One group against split in the Ismailis, right? But this was one of the most dangerous sects ever. Up till today, it captures the East and the West. Who knows the name of this sect? The Assassins. At the Assassin Tree, our kids here, they were real people, the Assassins. Al-Hasan al-Sabah. He was one, again, he differed, he split, right? And but he had a different vision. He said, no, it's not about an army fighting an army. He had a different way. He said, no. He trained assassins. The way he did it, when you read, it's very interesting. Get a group of young men, take them in, convince them that Al-Hasan al-Sabah, he's the light of Allah. You ask him, right? He used hashish. That's the name, assassin, hashish, right? Al-Hashashin, right? Marijuanas, right? Like I was translated, the marijuaners. So he used drugs, and he would give them drugs, and then he would deprive them. And they would be like, we want, and they would say, make dua for Hasan al-Sabah. And the kids would make dua. And then they would give them an overdose. And then they would carry them, and he had this place behind his fort where he built artificial rivers of honey, artificial rivers of milk. You know what he's doing, right? And he would take the kids there, and they wake up and they find this most beautiful place with people serving them, and things are so, and they're intoxicated. And then, oh, it's a beautiful place, right? And then they give them an overdose, take them back, and then they wake up and see, you make dua to Hasan in the Sabah, you are in Jannah. You get the idea, right? The serious thing is the following. They were so brainwashed, right? So brainwashed that they would do anything the leader would say. Now, his method was very interesting. He would send those people to pretend, basically he would send them, you pretend to be a sheikh, you pretend to be a priest, you pretend to be a soldier in the army of Salahuddin. So he sent his people everywhere. And his method was what? I don't need to fight you. If you say anything bad against me, guess what I will do? I will order one of them to kill you. Salahuddin confronted them. In one story, as you will see, when he confronted them, and I'll stop here, he fought against them. Right? So they sent someone to negotiate with Salahuddin. This is an assassin. So this person, Salahuddin, he enters, Salahuddin is in front of him, and that person tells Salahuddin, your soldiers, your guards, just can you please ask them to go out so we can? He said, no, I'm not doing that. He said, he said, yeah, I trust them. Those are my private soldiers, I raised them, you can speak in front of them. You know what the assassins did? He looked to the two soldiers and said, now. They both unsheathed their sword, put it on the neck of Salah. You get it? They're ours. And then he told, look, you're under arbitrary. If I want, you see the danger of it? So they would send their people everywhere, and they would be hidden. So if you do anything, they killed wazirs, they killed khalifas, they killed leaders, they killed scholars. Speak against me, you'll die. And you know how they did kill scholars, as you see? Friday khutbah in front of everybody. Why? Media. And when a terrorist makes an act, he relies on what? You have to spread it, to strike peace. So there was no CNN back in the day to do the job. So they will make sure to do their assassination in public. And the best time, Friday prayers. You speak against me on the pulpit, in front of everybody. You'll be assassinated, to strike fear in the hearts of people. So those people did live in that time. And Salahuddin and Nuruddin Zenki, we had to confront this kind of group. Those were some of the challenges from a political perspective and ideological perspective that the Muslims were having at the time. Now, inshallah, after Salah will continue. We'll see like how things changed and what happened and how the Crusades formed and how the Muslims, inshallah, faced that. Jazakumullah khair. So, inshallah, we'll meet after Salah. Jazakumullah. We can pray on the right side, inshallah. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. ورحمة الله.
Yeah.
Like I tried to do some background before we jump into Salahuddin and
So doing just the background information?
there will be like also the Crusaders when they came, what was it like, what happened, and I think it's important because you don't realize the greatness of Salahuddin without knowing again what he was facing. Like the evil of the other side. The enemy can be so evil, yet he can be so chivalrous. So and I'm doing it for a reason, so you can compare. Here is what they did, and here is how we respond. That's the idea.
Always good to have you. I'm excited to have you.
It's my
Always.
pleasure to be here. It's such a beautiful community. Imam Aziz is blessed to have you here. You're blessed to have him as a leader.
Definitely, definitely. Consider ourselves blessed in this community. We're grateful for you all.
I was, you know about the survey. I was thinking of handing it out. It's about Gaza. You think I can do that? Is it okay?
I think, yeah.
You can think it, please.
Take your break and run away with it. Take your break and run away with it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, like, let's get ready to start. I mean, if it's up to me, like, I just leave you guys to eat, and wallahi, I'm so happy to see this. The socializing and the bond you guys have is even more important than what I'm doing, inshallah. Allah keep your hearts together. Bismillah. Before I start, inshallah, like one thing we're doing this survey about Gaza, and it's basically surveying how are we feeling, how are we coping, what's our opinion, and it's very important because this is how we, tune what we say. Not only that, who copes better? Does reading Quran help? Does prayers help? How are we feeling? What do you guys think the number one feeling most of us have is? Depression, close. Sadness is number one, right? Which is legitimate. What do you think number two is? Anger. I thought anger. When we were doing this survey, I thought anger would be number two. Anger is number three. What do you think number two is? No. I thought that, or maybe helplessness, or no. Something really strange appeared. Anybody can guess? No, not happiness. Joy was, of course, very low. No, that was number four. So it's after anger. You know what was number two? And the reason I'm telling you this tells a lot about us. It's interesting. No guess? No more guessing? Guilt. Guilt. And two types of guilt. The first type is what? Maybe a little bit positive. Guilt, I can do more. That I understand. But you know what was the second one? Guilt that I'm happy. How can I have any joy in my life while they're suffering?
How can I eat for
Exactly. So people are starting to feel guilt. Life needs to go on. My son needs to get married, but I can't smile. I smile and I feel bad about me smiling, right? And it's a whole topic because I think something we're studying is shame and guilt in our societies. Are we a shame-driven society, right? So there is a lot of statistics. By the way, one other thing. question we asked, how many do you think of Muslims are thinking of leaving the United States because of what's happened? 50%. 50% are seriously thinking. I was shocked. 50%, I was like, what's happening? And why? Can you think what? There are two reasons that appear. Can you guess? So number one is like, I can't think they support it, but you know what's the number two? It's not that's one, but there's a second reason. Anybody can guess it? We need to know those things, like, because it's not safe for me anymore. I don't think it's safe for my kids anymore. People are starting to get worried. Right? So the surveys tells us a lot, right? Who are the people that how to fight being drained? Like, because you watch the news, I can show you news drain people, right? And people that cut news are less drained, right? But one factor appears very effective. Can you guess? I thought prayers. Prayers is effective, but there is factor that's above that. Gratitude, Quran. For some reason, and again that's the study, one of the most effective ways of coping in that condition was regular reading of the Quran. And I have a theory because it brings things to life. So people that were connected to the Quran and started reading it, they did not lose hope, they did not despair, which is very interesting. So I have the link, it's a QR code, I put it there. Please, I ask you to we need more. So please feel free to do that. It takes you 5 or 10 minutes, right? So I leave it here. Make sure to take it on your way out, inshallah.
Should I pass it?
Yeah, please. Here is some.
We'll take one and pass it.
Yeah.
Pass it down.
Leave me with at least one. Bismillah. Fine. So we'll continue, inshallah, our journey. So we spoke about the conditions that were there, before Salahuddin appeared and before the Crusaders landed and how the Muslims were divided. We spoke about the assassins, right? And we said their technique was what? Terror, right? Terrorizing people, being hidden, and they strike against whoever speak against the Ismaili order. Who was the number one target, you think, for the assassins? Who was the biggest challenge that was confronting the Ismailis now? Nizam al-Mulk? The scholars definitely. And many, Imam al-Ghazali, actually scholars say, Alhamdulillah that they left him alone. Alhamdulillah he didn't, because he really wrote against, right? But the figure that they saw that were really challenging is this Nizam al-Mulk, not the ruler. Nizam al-Mulk was such a brain, such a power. He brought everything together. He united Muslims. Those schools he's doing. He's an architect. He's a person with a vision, right? So Hassan ibn Sabah, his first target was what? Nizam al-Mulk. And the way he did it is very interesting. Nizam al-Mulk, as I said, every day he wakes up, gives charity, So he goes, he was visiting, some Muslim place where like Muslims are worshipping, the Zuhad and the Ubad, and he knows them, and they're poor people. So one of them came and pretended, please give me something. And as he placed his hand to give him something, he grabbed him, got a poisonous knife, and stabbed Nizam al-Mulk. It was an assassin. The last word Nizam al-Mulk said, which also tells us a lot about this character. It's very interesting. He doesn't know who did that. He doesn't know who stabbed him. All what he knows is a Muslim, right? The first thing he says, and subhanAllah, this is the natural response. He got stabbed, he knows he's about to die. And he says what? La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Leave him alone. Do not hurt this person. Ya Rabbi, I make you bear witness. Afawt, afawt, afawt. I pardon him, I pardon him, I pardon him. Do not do anything. But of course you can, what did the soldiers do? And that's an assassin, they got rid of him, right? When Nizam al-Mulk died, interestingly enough, what happens? Exactly what Hassan ibn Sabah predicted. This unified kingdom started to split. The Seljuks split into 5 nations. The ones in Iraq, the ones in Sham, the ones in Turkey, the one, in Khorasan, 5, and they started fighting with each other. That was the arena before the Crusades came. This is how the Muslims, this is the year 486, right? They came in the year 500, so it's like 8 years before the Crusades. This is how the Muslim world was. Politically, not did really good. You have the Ismailis ideologically, economical struggles. The Ummah was not in a good state, right? Fine. Before I continue, this is something I wanted to put for you like that. Sometimes when I teach this class, if it's up to me, I will teach this more, right? Whenever we study history, what we do usually is we go to the line of events. This year, what happened, what battle, who won, who, you know, the political, right? The interesting thing to do when you study history is you do this, you know, the political line, and then in parallel with it, who were the scholars that were living at that time? And I found out, myself included, we don't even have chronology. Like if I tell you Ibn Kathir, when did he live? Was it the Ottomans? Was it the Mamluks? Was it the Abbasis? What era he lived in? Ibn al-Qayyim, we hear those names. Ibn Ata'illah al-Secondary, al-Shadli, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, al-Ghazali. Who came first? Who affected who? What's happening here in the line of events is affected by the teaching of those scholars. Right? So what we're going to do, and I'm going to keep it brief, as we move in the line of events, you'll find me reflecting on the names of the scholars that impacts the events that we're speaking about. So if you look from far, like the time we're speaking about, this is in Hijri years, right? The Crusaders came like about 499, 500 Hijri, right? This is the area that like Nuruddin Zinki and Salahuddin, that's when they lived. We have another event that came also close to 632, the Mongols attack, right? So you have two big events that happened at this time. And those are the scholars that lived at the time. So if you ask, where is Ibn Taymiyyah? Well, he lived in the time of the Mongols. Ibn Kathir, he comes after Ibn Taymiyyah. You see what I'm speaking about? And this is very interesting. There is a relation between those scholars, right? So the area that we spoke about, right now, if I go one more, I would say for this class, we're going to zoom in a little bit, right? 3 phases. The 3 phases of change. Phase 1 we're in today, which is what? Before. How things were before, right? And the 2 names I need you to remember, Nizam al-Mulk, because that's the person that planted the seed, right? So this is the year 487. And one of the scholars that appeared in the time from the Nizamiyya school that changed everything is Imam al-Ghazali, right? So, and I want you to notice something really interesting. Imam al-Ghazali lived to see the Crusades. So the Crusades happened in his time. He saw, right? Can I ask you something interesting about Imam al-Ghazali? So he saw the Crusades, and he saw what the Crusaders did. Did he write any book about jihad fi sabilillah? You know his works, Ihya Ulum al-Din, and he didn't speak about that. Why? How did he diagnose the disease? What was his reform? Well, I want to speak about that a little bit as we go, inshallah, right? But I want you also to notice something. After Imam al-Ghazali, a lot of the major tasawwuf movements appeared. You know when you speak about Sufis, tasawwuf, and they think tasawwuf is Sunni, right? Whether it's the Qadiri, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, whether it's Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i, whether it's al-Shadili, they all started appearing here. Why? You see there is an interesting link, right? We'll speak about that. Those scholars, by the way, they're not like the Sufis of today. I just beg to differ. And even Ibn Taymiyyah, when you read the work of Ibn Taymiyyah, that's what he was trying to do. He was telling the Sufis of his time, this is not what Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani did. This is not what Sheikh Ahmad al-Rifa'i did. You're off, you're off. They didn't used to dance, they didn't used to do this, right? So he was trying to reform that, right? So also we'll encounter the religious movements at the time. A major figure that also appeared at the time is Ibn al-Jawzi. You hear that name a lot. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi and Ibn al-Jawzi, right? You hear that a lot. And we'll see Ibn al-Jawzi and his student, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, will be with Salahuddin Al-Ayobi during the battles. We'll see that, inshallah. So this is something I want us to keep track of. We're now in phase 1. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll go to the phase 2 and a little bit of 3. Phase 2 is the phase where things started to change. They're not perfect yet, but things started to change, right? And then finally we have phase 3, where all of a sudden you see tremendous change, right? And this is what we want to speak about. How did that happen? Those people, what did he teach? Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, because he was present during the Crusades. Nay, most of the people that were with Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, as we see, are the students of this sheikh, right? I'll tell you one thing. There's a name I mentioned here, Sheikh Adi ibn Musayf. And I mentioned him for a reason before I continue. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani was in Baghdad. And we'll speak a little bit more about him tomorrow, right? Immense, tremendous figure. What he did is amazing. His teachings are amazing. He was known, his teaching, you have his books today. He speaks about another sheikh that he says, he's even better than me. Sheikh Adi ibn Musayfir. But Adi ibn Musayfir, we don't have anything about what he did. Why? Sheikh Adi ibn Musayfir did not go to Baghdad. He went into an area. It's called Hikar. Hikar was mountains. Kurds lived in that area. And it was gangs. Basically, cutthroats, thugs, thieves. You know when you go to downtown Los Angeles? You know what I'm speaking about? And it's like, don't do that, you're not going to come back alive, right? So here's what happened in our terminology. Imagine a sheikh going to downtown Los Angeles, right? And in 10 years, downtown Los Angeles looks like Irvine, California. What did you do? How did you do that, right? So Sheikh Adi ibn Musayfir did that. He went into this area that is known to be very unsafe. Those are thugs, thieves, right? And he just moved in. And he got a piece of land and started raising his crops and living there. And people, those thugs, he affected them so much to the extent they changed, they repented, and they came to him and they started to study. And he transformed the whole area, became one of the safest areas. Now what happened is what? Those people of Hikar, they left their area and they went to Nuruddin Zinki and Salahuddin. Most of the leaders of Salahuddin Al-Ayobi and Nuruddin Zinki, you'll find the name Al-Hikari. Saifuddin al-Mashtub al-Hikari. Al-Faqih Isa al-Hikari. They're the students of that sheikh. Now the interesting thing, what did he teach? Because those men, as you will see, are amazing people. So a part of this class is also looking at those scholars and saying, what did they do? The interesting thing, what I want from this class is not also only to inspire you with the leaders, like Nuruddin Zik and Salahuddin. This is what happened with me. I was so inspired by those people, I said, what did Sheikh Abdul Qadir teach? And I started, the books are there, you can get it. And I started, let me read. And subhanallah, it's transformed. Like, wallahi. The works of those scholars, you read and it changes you from inside. What they worked in is something amazing, as we'll see inshallah. Right? So that's again a part I'm trying to entice you or put enough curiosity for you to like, maybe I should look on those names, right? And start reading the book. The books are translated, by the way. Right. So the part now we're going to speak about is what? The facts. So we speak about the Muslims, how things were, and how the Muslims were not in a good shape. What was going on in Europe? Right? Many things happened. The Muslims in Spain were not doing well either. Toledo fell, and they started to lose. And the Pope, Europe, by the way, was Catholics, right? And who's the strongest man in Europe at the time? You have the UK, like you have Germany, you have France. Who do you think is the most powerful person among the Franks? The Pope. Something they had, every single king respected the Pope. Why? Because Europe was not like the Europe of today. The Europeans were extremely sincere Christians. They believed the Pope is divinely guided. And they were serious Catholics. They really believed in the Pope. Or if a king disobeys the Pope, all what he has to do is like what? I proclaim that he should not be a king. That's it. The king cannot rule anymore. So the Pope had tremendous power. Right? The problem is people were very ignorant. It was the dark age of Europe, as we speak. So those crusaders, as you see, when they came to the Muslims, oftentimes you imagine the crusader knight to be what? Chivalrous, this, right? We will see barbarians, literally. And I'll share with you how Muslims encountered them and what they described, what happened, right? They're very sincere people, they're very devout Christians, but they're very ignorant, right? So what happened is the following. And this is again a statement that I like. Ibn al-Qayyim writes this. He says, "فالله ما عدا عليك العدو إلا بعد أن أعرض عنك الولي، فلا تظن أن العدو غلب أو الشيطان غلب ولكن الولي أعرض." Saying by Allah, never think that it's your enemy that overpowered you. The default is Allah's al-Wali. You know what al-Wali is? Al-Qarib alladhi yar'ak, Al-Habib alladhi yansur. The most near that will take care of you. you the most, that will always bring you victory and protect you. The default is Allahu huwa al-wali. Any believer, anyone sitting, the default is Allah is protecting us. So Ibn Qayyim is saying what? When you see that Muslims are defeated, don't start thinking, what did the enemy do? They could not have defeated the Muslims. They defeated them because Al-Wali, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I must have done something, that I'm out of the protection of Allah. You see what he's saying? He's saying, whenever you see Muslims defeated, think this way. What have we done that we're so far that they can do this to us? It's not about who they are. Where is Al-Wali? What happened? You see the idea? And you can see the Muslims were not in a good state. The Muslims are far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So they're very exposed. Now what happened? Again, Europe was divided at the time. The Pope did something very interesting. Right? He did a speech, a very famous speech. You can look it up, by the way. It's at Claremont, right? And I have it here, but I'm just going to tell you the highlights. So Europe was fighting, you know, England versus France versus Germany, all of them fighting each other. And the Pope saw Muslims are weak, Spain is falling, right? And news are coming. Some say the Ismailis sent to him, telling him, why don't you come, take care of the Seljuks. But I'm not sure how accurate that is, right? But the Pope decided this is a good time for a counter-attack against the Muslims. Christians need something to unify them. So he gathered all the kings, and he gave a very famous speech in Claremont. And he started the speech by praising the kings and praising the people of France and the people, you're the ones that defend Christ, those are the people of God, you're the godly people, you're the people that worship God, right? He says, I have bad news. False media, right? And a cursed nation came to power, speaking about Muslims. Unclean people. And they are killing Christians left and right. Which was not true, of course, right? And they are doing terrible things in the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the city of the Prince of Peace, the city of Jesus, according to him, right, fell under those barbaric people, and they are playing with Christians' heads and they're cutting them left and right. And he started giving them a very bleak and dark picture. That Muslims, barbarians, unclean, filthy, infidels, and they are just wiping Christians out, and your brothers, the Christians, are seeking your aid. See what? And then he starts doing what? Notice this. The worldly benefits too. Those are kings, right? Said, by the way, the cities of Sham, they're very rich. Plenty of gold and silver and fruits and very good weather. Not like Europe, right? You guys visited Europe, you know what I'm speaking about that. And he said, anybody that goes there, he can take whatever. It's blessed, you know. And anybody that joins this campaign, me, the Pope, promise heaven for him. All your sins are forgiven. I give you an edict, right? You know, they used to sell this, right? So the Pope is giving you that. And they were so zealous people that everybody started crying. Everybody gave an oath. This can never be. We are Christians. We are God's soldiers. Those barbarians, we will show them. We will go. We will unite. And then they said, our symbol is the cross. That's the symbol. So they started doing what? Everybody that goes to this campaign will put a cross, you know, the Crusader symbol, right? And they started gathering. And a massive campaign now led by what? The leaders of Europe starting to form. Right? Muslims are completely unaware. Which tells us, by the way, you go to the Abbasi Khilafah back in the day, before an army moves from Europe, they would know about it. This time, they have no clue what's going on in Europe. Everybody's by himself, everybody's fighting. You know, they had no clue that this is happening. Now, by the way, this is the speech of the Pope. I will not go through it, right? But like, if you're interested, I can give it to you on the internet too, right? And you can read it, and you know, you can see like, the tactics and the politics used, you know, and his words, and how he aroused emotions. Very careful religious people, sometimes they can arouse emotions for people to do wrong things because they're sincere people. Those crusaders were very sincere, poor people, and they played on their emotions and they did horrible things. They were misguided. Remember, in Islam, when we speak about Christians, you know, Surah Al-Fatiha, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, right? And some people tell you, like the Prophet said, الضالين are Christians. What does it mean? Lost people. You know what Ibn Qayyim, when he speaks about it, he said, There's two ways to get lost. You have knowledge, but you're not acting on it. You have your book. You know what to do, but you decide not. You know what you should say, but you do the opposite. This earns you Allah's wrath. Because we become a proof against it. And the Jewish people, which was another Muslim nation, that's the path they chose. There's another way to get completely off the road. Being sincere, being true. I will act, I will worship, I can worship day and night. But what's the problem? The book I'm holding in my hand, we call it Fasad al-Ilm, is false. The information is bad. So I'm very sincere, really want to please God, sincere person, willing to give my life. But my ilm is not there. My ilm is not there. And therefore I will do horrible things thinking I'm doing it for the sake of God. Many people that do horrible things in the name of religion are very sincere. The problem is not lack of sincerity. The problem is what? Ilm. And knowledge. And being too emotional with no knowledge. Very dangerous, right? This was the case here. Right? I'm saying that also for a reason for us to think, right? In any case, so what do you think the first response was? A crusade started to happen. And I'm going to say that for a reason. A person, he's a wa'id. Wa'id is an admonition. Peter the Hermit, his name. You can look him up, right? He was very powerful. You know, some people speak and they move the hearts. They give emotional speeches. He's not a scholar. He's one of those people. He started speaking. And the farmers and the peasants, everybody was touched by this man. And he started, let's gather, we'll go. Christ will lead our way. We believe in God, we will win. Allah's with us, you know. God is with us and nobody can defeat us. And he added something really interesting. He said, and I'll tell you this, the most pure of people are who? We want the purest of people to be there, so God will give us victory. So who are the purest of people? Can you guess? Children. Gather your children. We'll put them in the front line. As they go, God's victory will come and other armies will be demolished. And he gathered children. Just imagine. And he formed the first crusade, the Children Crusade. Ad hoc. Very zealous people, very sincere people, very emotional people. Saying that for a reason. Follow emotion with no strategy does not work. He's saying for Muslims too. Because sometimes we follow Peter the Hermit. You did not plan, you have no strategy, you know what, and you're in it with your heart, it's not good enough. What do you think happened to them? So they gathered together, they landed in Asia Minor, they started to face the Seljuk Empire. What do you think the Seljuks did? A crusade of children. What do you think happened? They captured all of them, sold them in slavery. Disaster, right? But then, subhanAllah, it gave a false message to the Seljuks. The Seljuks sound like those crazy Christians, those crusaders. Don't take them serious, man. They're just like a word with nothing, right? They're just emotional people, peasants and farmers. They don't know what they're doing, right? So they started to take it easy. It fooled the Seljuks. You know what happened? Now, the worst part, when the real crusade started forming, and I'm speaking about the kings, the rulers, the leaders, with real knights, and you know this, the Crusader knight, Iron Fort, right? And they started forming, and they started heading, and they went all the way, and they landed in Asia Minor, right? Here's the map, right? So they gathered in the city of Constantinople, and they land. And the first city is the city of Nicaea, right? Under Khilj Arsalan, again, names are not important here, right? Of the time. And people come to him and tell him, there is a crusade coming to your city. No. What was he busy doing? He was busy fighting another ruler. You know, another Muslim. He says, later. You know, I know those people, we fought them before, those kids. You know, I'll take care of them. Right? But I'm busy with something more important here. You're fighting that other Muslim, right? SubhanAllah, right? And then the news came to him, your city is surrounded. And he said, what? Okay. He went to the other guy, said, okay, you know, I need to take care of business, so let's make a truce here so I can, and after that we'll finish our, you know. And he makes a truce, and he goes. And it said he was shocked. He didn't expect. He says, thousands of soldiers, well fortified, iron, you know how the Crusaders are, right? And he And he was like, I can't do anything against those people. And he was so terrified, so he ordered the city to surrender. Like that. So surrender to them. There's so many, I can't do anything. And he started to run with his soldiers, gathering other umara, telling them what? Your turn is next. They took my city, we need to do something. Gather with me so that we can ambush them. Because if you don't do that, you're next. And he gathered some people and they decided, let's lay a trap for them. The Seljuks, by the way, one of the famous techniques when you read, they were excellent archers. Like if you read a little bit about them, what they used to do, they have a very interesting attack method. They would ride the horse, right? And they use the bow and arrow while riding, and they would fire an array of arrows, right? So they would raid, fire arrows, decimate, and they keep doing this before they engage in combat, right? The Crusaders, their bow is very strong, right? So they fire one big arrow. The Seljuks is like a machine gun. Small arrows, but like 10 of them. It's like 3 to 1, 4 to 1, right? So that's their method. So they said, okay, let's lay an ambush. And they chose a place between two hills. And they said, we'll put our archers there, and they come between those two hills, and we raid them, and we just fire those arrays, and we just decimate them all. And they waited in a place called Al-Ayobi, right? And then all of a sudden, what happened is an army appears. The Franks appears. And they look, oh, it's a big army. And then they went into that valley between the two mountains. And then they signaled their troops fire, right? And an array of arrows started, falling on the Franks. And it said it was very effective against, like mounts, against some soldiers. And it took them by surprise. They got some losses, but eventually the Franks, sluggish as they are and iron, they immediately formed like a square, put their armored knights in front, put their shields up, and they stood their position. They kept firing arrows, but khalas, non-effective. And the Franks are steadfast, just holding position. And at that point they said, what should we do? Engage in hand combat against this fort of iron? Should we? Yes, no, yes, no. And to their surprise, said they look onto the right side, a huge army, Frankish armies appearing. What? And then they look to the left side, another army is appearing. They look behind them. The part that they thought is that the ambush was not the army, it was the vanguard, just the muqaddimah of the jaysh. And now they realize, my God, this was not the army, this was just the vanguard. Now the whole army is appearing and we're surrounded. What do you think happened? There was one advantage left. The Arabian horse is fast. Get it? Anybody who study horses? By the way, like, have you seen the European horse? The workhorse? Giant, right? The Arabian horse is elegant, intelligent, very fast, right? That's it. By the way, another side information. The Mongols, later on. What kind of horse do you think the Mongols used? So like, the Europeans, they use the big horse. The Arabs, the Muslims, they had the Arabian horse, which is very small, very. The Mongols use ponies. Can you imagine? Genghis Khan, ponies. It's very interesting. Anyway, so they use their advantage. Take your horse, run. They can't catch. What about the foot soldiers? Every man for himself. Literally. And it was a disaster. Qajar Salam ran with his horses, left all the foot soldiers, massacred. Muslims got badly defeated in the Battle of Al-Ayobi. The worst part was, now what spread? He started running, spreading the news. كلما جاءهم أمر من الخوف أذاعوا به. Hey, be very careful. Because sometimes when we're stricken by fear, what do? Post. Don't do that. Right? So he started running there. Oh, knights, forts, impossible, terrible. So fear is now striking everywhere. News are coming. The Europeans, the knights, formidable, strong, powerful, irresistible. Psychological warfare spread by Muslims, right? And he started to spread the news, right? And everybody now is scared. Where are they going? What's their target? They have no idea, right? Next stop, what happened? They head, and I'm going to be a little bit brief, although there is a lot, we have details about this, but this is not my goal, right? So I'm just skipping a little bit, right? So they go, the next city is the city of Antioch. You don't need to remember the rulers, Yagisian, just again, not all the names are important. There was a Muslim ruler there, and they started to lay siege to the city of Antakya. This is a huge city, right? Now, the interesting part now, and I'll speak a little bit because this is interesting, and this is the challenge that Salahuddin will face. The dynamics in the area was the following. There were three major cities that we need to look at. Aleppo, modern-day Halab, right? Damascus, the capital of Syria, the biggest city, right? And then Mosul. At that time, those three cities were not united. It's three different rulers, first of all. And those two, Aleppo and Damascus, it was really interesting. So what happened? Ridwan came into power in Aleppo. He started killing all his brothers, right? One of them escaped. And he went, which is the Hawk, and took Damascus. So those are two brothers that are fighting each other, right? Ridwan used the assassins. They were close to him, and he used them to fight his opponents, right? So he was this figure that is like, be careful with this guy. And there was a war that was ranging for years between those two brothers. Antakya was sometimes with Aleppo, sometimes with Damascus. They shift allegiance. So when the Crusaders came, the first thing he did, the leader of Antakya, is what? He said, I need help. Who should I go to? So he went to Damascus. And he looked, there is Franks coming. If they take Antakya, you're next. You got to help me out. Right? And he kept negotiating with him till finally he convinced him to help him, right? And he said, okay, he sent an army of Damascus, to march towards Antioch to try to do something. On the way, here is what happened. The big army of Damascus meets a very small portion of the Crusaders' army. It's like 300 knights, something like that. The whole army of Damascus stopped, and they were, should we attack? Should we not attack? We heard about those people. And guess what happened? The Franks attacked. The 300 knights attacked. The entire army of Damascus got defeated. And they returned and left the whole thing done. And I'm saying that for a reason. I want you to see how that sounds. Why are the soldiers that way? Because I want you to compare this to Salahuddin next, right? What happened? There's a transformation that's going to happen, right? Next, he goes to, okay, let's go for Aleppo, right? He goes to Ridwan, convinces him, after a lot of political, why did you go to my brother, you didn't come to me, all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, he agrees to help. An army of Aleppo is now marching towards Antakya. But he orders the army, be very careful. I'm afraid of being surrounded by those knights. So he ordered his army into a valley, 3 mountains, to be guarded, and it was a disaster. The Franks appeared, and now the army is surrounded by mountains. They attacked, and it said, and again I'm going quick, it was a big massacre. Next day in Antakya, people in Antakya could hear the Franks laughing and the whistles of the catapults. What is going on? The catapults were not throwing stones. You know what they were throwing? Can you guess? The heads and the body parts of the Muslim army of Aleppo that is coming to hold them. And people of Antakya, they were now shaking. Eventually, the city of Antakya fell, and I'm making it short, right? When the city of Antakya fell, the Franks entered into the city. Every single man, woman, child, everybody was put to the sword. Everyone. I'm not speaking 10, 20,000. It's a bloodbath. They killed everybody. Now, all the Muslims are terrified. Those Franks, they're undefeatable and they mean business, right? So fear it, and they don't know what's next. And I'm going to go a little bit fast here. I'm going to skip one of the battles. At this time, what do you think the Ismailis in Egypt did? Remember, Egypt is under the Ismailis, right? Very interesting. The Ismailis took that as an opportunity. The Seljuks are busy with what? The Franks. Jerusalem, which was under the Seljuks, right? It's not well defended. An army moves from Egypt, attacks Jerusalem, takes Jerusalem away from the Seljuks. And they send a letter to the Franks. Congratulations. Good. Let's make a deal. You keep the cities in Sham, we keep the cities in Egypt, we're good. Who's the common enemy? The Seljuks. Let's normalize. What happens? The Franks respond with one word. What about Jerusalem? I want you to see that. We're here for Jerusalem. What about Jerusalem? Right? So, when that happened, another chapter. Now they're starting to march. Now people realize they are going for Jerusalem. That's the problem. On the way to Jerusalem, an incident happened, a small city by the name of Ma'arra. And I'm mentioning that for a reason. The Franks went and they surrounded the city. The people of Ma'arra said, we can't defeat those people, let's surrender. So they made a deal with them. If we were to surrender the city to you, can you let us go? We'll make a deal, we will not fight. And the response comes from the Franks. If you were to deliver the city, everybody's free to go. No problems. And guess what happened? They decided to go with the treaty. They delivered the city to the Franks. You know what happened in the city of Ma'arra? They went in, broke the treaty. Every single man, woman, and child put to the sword, killed everybody. But in the city of Ma'arra, something else happened that haunted the Muslims for decades. Something undescribable, something that many of us do not know. This is from not the Muslim account. This is the Christian account. They say this, not us. Right? Here, and this is a letter they sent to the Pope. I want you to read it. They sent a letter to the Pope. In the city of Ma'arra, we boiled the adult pagans, Muslims, in giant pots. We paled their children in spits of fire, and we devoured their flesh. Cannibal. They ate Muslims. And the reason I'm saying this, is it that bad today? You see, like this, when you look at this, oh, it's horrific. This is our history. I'm asking you, did we face this today? I don't think it's that bad, right? We didn't. Our enemy is not like that. And they did that, not in shyness, they're saying it publicly. Yes, they're infidels. Yes, they deserve to die. We're here to eradicate all of them. We ate them. And Muslims now are terrified. What happened next is what? All the Muslim rulers started to do what? We can't fight the Franks. What do they want? Jerusalem. What do you think all the leaders did next? All the Muslim cities, Beirut, Saida, Akka, what did they do? Okay, you want Jerusalem? Here's food. Here's guides. Here's horses. Go to Jerusalem. Leave me alone. As long as I can sit on my seat, it's not my problem. You see the idea? It's the people of Jerusalem, khas. Bismillah addi. Right? So they helped them, thinking what? They just want to take Jerusalem and leave us alone. Do you think this will happen? No? It's obvious, right? But that's how they fought. So they aided them to go to the city of Jerusalem. Eventually, the Franks reached the city of Jerusalem. What happened in the city of Jerusalem? They surrounded the city. And they started a war. And the garrison inside under the Ismailis, they weren't that strong. And after 30, 40 days, the wall of the city collapsed. And the Franks fought in the city of Jerusalem, the city of the Prince of Peace. What happened that day is so important because I want us to compare this to Salahuddin al-Ayobi. They claim, what do they claim? We're the followers of Jesus. In the name of Christ. That we're the infidels. Muslims are infidels, right? They went in. The first thing they did, they started killing everybody. The Muslims went to the Aqsa Mosque. The reports say 30,000. Thinking it's a masjid. The Franks, by their own record and by the Muslim record. The knights entered into the Aqsa Mosque, closed the doors. Kept killing everybody. They say, we had to stop killing. The blood is to the knees of our horses. The stench of the bodies, we can't take anymore. After 1 week of killing Muslims, we had to stop. In the Aqsa Mosque alone, they killed 30,000 Muslims in 1 day. Is it as bad? It's terrible. Like I know it's very depressing, but there is a reason I'm telling you this. Things happen in the past, and we overpower. It's not as bad today. Muslims recovered from that. Right? But that tells you what? They did that in the name of Christ, claiming that we are infidels. We're the terrorists. It's interesting. We're the infidels. Look at this. Right? Christians, Jews. There were Jews there? Yes, there were Jews living there under the Muslims, of course, always peaceful. The Jews went into their synagogue. What happened? The Franks surrounded all of them. They blocked the entrances and they burned them all alive. Killed everyone. Orthodox Christian, same thing. Doesn't matter. If you're not Catholic, it doesn't matter. Systematic killing happened in the city of the Prince of Peace. One of the scholars there, Al-Ayobi, he succeeds in escaping, right? And he decides to go to Baghdad to convey to the Khalifa what happened, the disaster that befell Jerusalem, what the fate of the Muslims. That's unacceptable, right? And he goes to Baghdad and he does a very interesting thing. He goes there. It was the month of Ramadan. He's a traveler. People don't know that, so he's a traveler. So he's not fasting. So he goes in the month of Ramadan. He goes in the middle of the marketplace and starts eating in front of everybody. People got really offended. How do you do this? You're violating the sanctity of the month of Ramadan. You're eating in public. Soldiers, police, arrest this man. And then he started saying, you're upset that I violated the the holiness of the month of Ramadan, and you have no idea about what happened to the Muslims in Jerusalem. And he started telling them what's happening in Jerusalem. Everybody in the marketplace cried. Everybody decided we're heading to the palace of the Khalifa. And they went to the palace of the Khalifa. This is the Qadi al-Haram, very young. And he entered, and he started saying poetry, and everybody's crying. Everybody's announcing what? We have to do something. Al-Jihad fi sabilillah, all those words. We will free Palestine, everything you name it, right? Massive demonstrations in Baghdad. About the Nisa. We're not going to let that be. We're going to let them. What do you think happened next? Anybody wants to bet? Massive demonstrations. Very angry. Lots of emotions. Definitely. Arabs, right? More of them. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. No army went. Nothing happened. I have this picture, and again, I want to share this with you. Avoid the Coca-Cola response. What's a Coca-Cola response? You get a bottle of Coke, you open the tin can, you shake it. Have you ever tried this? We used to use it as a kid. You shake it, you open it, what happens? It's a lot of mess, right? But it's nothing serious. What happens if you shake it again? Same response, right? Shake it again. But after 3-4 times, what happens? Oh. Am I a Coca-Cola Muslim? I get really angry. I go and yell and cry. But what happens after that? Do you change? No. Once you stop shaking the bottle, what happens? Go back to where I was. I'm silent. I'm waiting for you to shake the bottle again, and I will do the same response again. I'm very emotional, start posting pictures and stuff, but do you change after that? No. And then after 3-4 times, what happens? I get tired. You get it? Look, my friends, I'm much older than you guys. I remember in the 90s, 91 and 92, 93, as a university student, same thing, massive demonstrations at Cairo University, and my friends used to go, speak against, Israel and what have you. It's good. Right? 91, 96, 98, 2002. The same friends that used to do this in 91, what do you think they're doing now? They fizzled out. You get what I'm saying about? What is needed is not a Coca-Cola response. Demonstrations are good, but they're not good if you feel I'm angry, it's just an emotional outburst, I did something, I go home and I don't change. If I didn't change anything and I'm waiting for the next thing to happen and they respond in the same way, we're not moving. You get the idea? Right? So emotions are good, but I have to direct them. What's wrong? I need to change something. Long-term change, not a short-term. This is not a short-term problem. We need a strategy, and this is again what you see here. They did what they did. Jerusalem fell, right? And by the way, guess what happened after that? All the cities that helped them. Remember? Guess what? In the following 10 and 20 years, here is the situation. City by city, they started attacking. All of them fell. And the following situation appears, very similar. There is now a small nation, all Muslims, and a small nation here, called the Frankish kingdoms. They're there in the name of Christ. This is our land according to the Bible. And we're here to stay. Same king, right? By the way, why did they take the coastal cities only? Anybody can guess strategically? The sea, right? Because this is where they get reinforcements from From where? Europe. I want you to notice something. They are backed by who? They're backed by the whole Europe. If you fight them, you're fighting who? You're fighting Europe. They have supplies coming in. You're not just fighting Jerusalem. Right? And we see that was the problem when Salahuddin will attack. And when Salahuddin took Jerusalem, many of us think, that's it. Salahuddin comes, he takes Jerusalem, we win. No. What happened that actually started the biggest struggle of Salahuddin was after he liberated Jerusalem. What do you think happened when he liberated Jerusalem? You think Europe just said, khalas, he liberated Jerusalem? A massive counter-attack happened. The whole Europe came against him. He had to face Europe by himself, as we'll see. He succeeded, as we'll see, inshallah, right? But I want you to see, like, what's happening here, right? Now, one thing I want to discuss a little bit today, the Franks in the Muslim eyes. This is also an important part that is not usually in history. What were the Franks like? How did the Muslims describe them? And I find this really interesting. So first, the Muslims, when they describe the Franks, they describe them as the following. On the battleground, they're brave, vigilant, steadfast, strong, powerful, brave. They praise them. As warriors, they say they're excellent. Excellent knights in the battlefield. But other than that, here's the descriptions from the Muslims. Science and medicine. When one incident, the Franks had some cases, sick people, and they sent for the Muslims, please send us one of your doctors. Because we have some sick people, we don't know how to treat them. And we hear that Muslims are good in medicine. They didn't have medicine, and you'll see. So they sent one doctor, to the Christian camp, and then the doctor comes back and he says, what did you see? And he said, like, man, those people are... Said, what happened? Said they presented two cases. The first case, it was a knight who was wounded, and the wound was infected. So I tried this to clean it and, do regular medication to clean the infection. But then comes this religious person, one of the priests. And then he says, what is this infidel doing here? About this guy, right? You say, he can't treat anything. Move him away. I, in the name of Christ, can treat this guy. Okay, show us your signs. He looks at the man, looks at the wound, and he asks the man this question. Would you rather die with 2 legs or live with 1 leg? And the man said, live with 1 leg. He said, okay, get me a soldier with a battle axe. Hit right there. And again, the doctor was amazed. And he said, the man started hitting, and the marrow of the bone started to splatter, and the man died out of what? Bleeding. That's their medicine. And he said the second case was even weirder. He said it was a woman who has allergy to food. And things happened in her, and they said, okay, you need to control your diet. You stop eating this, and you stop eating this, and please, rub your skin with this. And the same man comes, what is this guy doing again? Show me the woman. He looks at her, oh, I see what's the problem. There's a devil who's in love with her. And he entered in her brain. I need to get him out. So what's the solution? Shave her hair. Shaved her hair. Of course, the woman was so depressed, started eating more. Symptoms increased. So this guy comes and says what? Oh, serious problem. The devil is in her brain. I need to get him out. So what does he do? What does he do? He gets a knife, holds her, and he starts cutting the skull in the form of cross. Give me some salt. Let's put the salt inside the brain to get the devil, and the woman dies. This is the West. So the Muslims looked at them as like they have no idea what they're doing. They're so backward, right? On the other hand, Muslims were advanced. Cleanliness and hygiene. SubhanAllah. Muslims, when Salahuddin's army, by the way, he had mobile bathrooms. Muslims are clean. So Salahuddin, when he's moving with his army, what's a mobile bathroom? You're a Muslim. Not only you need to make wudu, you need to make ghusl every Friday. So the army is moving with a mobile, showers and what have you, so you can clean yourself, right? The Crusaders, they did not bathe for years. To the extent Muslims would say literally, and I heard that myself, I will tell you that. They would say, we know that a Crusader army, a Frankish army, before they appear from the stench, we can smell it. Can you imagine? Before they appear on the horizon, yeah, they're near. When I visited Spain, Spain, and like they showed me one of the galley ships, the Spanish galley ships, where they put people in one to row, and they were chaining them. Those are slaves. They're slaves, so they're chained. And I said, well, they're chained to a bench, and that's it. They don't go. Where do they go? I said, yeah, they eat, sleep, go to the bathroom in the same spot. And they said you can smell a galley miles away before it appears. So the consequences of this, the Franks, so many of them died because of the lack of hygiene. Because of what? Disease. Infant mortality was so high simply because they don't even clean themselves. They go to the bathroom, you guys know, admitted up till today. They don't clean properly. And then they eat and it's just terrible, right? So Muslims look very like those people are really backward. Speak about jurisprudence and justice, the concept, the justice. So they describe this. A case came, two people accusing each other. Muslims we had jurisprudence and fiqh, and you have to get, innocent and proven guilty, and where is the witnesses, and fiqh is very well developed at the time. The Crusaders, and the Muslims were surprised. Said a case came, a man accused another man of stealing. How did the judge rule? Okay, get this man. If he's saying the truth is heavy. So we'll tie his hands, throw him in a big container of water. If he says the truth, he will sink, and then we'll pull him up. If he's lying, falsehood is light. He won't be able to sink, he'll float. So we get the man, tie his hands, throw him in the water thing. The man tried his best to sink, he couldn't, because stayed afloat. They got him, he's guilty, kill him. So they're very backward people. Right? So when Muslims encountered the Crusades, they saw the following, as described here. Very brave on the battleground, but really extremely backward. The reason I'm mentioning this, no morals, as you saw, killing, no cleanliness, no science. They were told by the Pope, what? You're the children of Christ, and the Muslims are the infidels. What do you think happened when they encountered Salahuddin? Salahuddin showed them a completely different picture. One of the major victories of Salahuddin, and it haunted them. Because the way he treated them, as you see, the honor, the manners, the chivalry that he showed, the compassion, it touched them so much that many of those knights, when they went to Europe, they were very disturbed. You know why? Because they were saying, we thought they're the infidels. It turns out they're better than us. It turns out we are not that good. Later, that is what causes the uprisings in Europe against the church. So those encounters with Muslims and what Salahuddin will do will actually affect the Crusades. But this is the type of enemy the Muslims were encountering. Okay? So I'm going to stop here today. So again, I know it's very negative. I know that it's but again, what was the purpose of today? I don't think we're that bad. I don't think our enemy is that brutal yet, right? And we recovered from this. So if we recover from this, we can recover from what we have today. This darkness, I want you to remember it, because we are going to see how Salahuddin, when he confronts those people, will he treat them in the same way? Will he do, when he opens Jerusalem, will he do to them what they did to him? I want you to watch for that, inshallah. Right? How does the change happen? How does Salahuddin come forward? Who are the people responsible for that? Inshallah, this is what we want to cover tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Right. Jazakumullah khair. Please don't forget the survey. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower all of us with His mercy. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid our brothers and sisters in Palestine. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite our minds, our hearts, and our efforts. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah. So tomorrow I think it's 9 to 12.
Yes.
Right? 9 to 12, inshallah. So 9 to 12 the time.
Do we have it on Sunday as well?
Yes, inshallah.
Same 9
9 to 12, inshallah.
And are we recording it?
I think so. By preparing to come in person.
No, because tomorrow I have a prior commitment, so inshallah, but I'll come on Sunday, inshallah. Sorry about that, I had already made that commitment. So inshallah, but I'll see you on Sunday, inshallah. So I'll miss the important part, but that's okay, inshallah. I'll get to catch it.
Inshallah.
catch up. But you were saying like it did trigger the Renaissance, right?
Yes.
Incredible, and that's
Between
why
this
we
and
have.
Spain,
Yeah.
because they
That's
were
why
very
we.
distant, they were like, they're not infidels, and we're the ones that backward, and they actually enjoyed the lifestyle, and they said the Muslims are better morally, better intellectually, better in medicine. It's like, how can we be the people of God and they're the infidels? Looks the opposite. Right? And
But-
you see Salahuddin, he really disturbed me. Because not only with the victory and the battle, his morals.
We're going to be moving the entire setup. I'm
But
going to make an announcement.
humble, I triggered and proved the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that a prophet came as a mercy to mankind, and through that, amazing things came out.
Assalamu
We
alaikum.
exist today
If I
because
can have some brothers help move this setup to the youth lounge for tomorrow's class.
It's not only I'm fighting on the battleground. I'm a Muslim, and they need to see Islam. I uphold the teachings of Islam. It's more important.
and doesn't matter. At cost doesn't matter.
They betray, I don't betray. They murder like this, I don't murder like this.
Treachery is not part of it.
Exactly, right.
And
It's
we
not in
know,
our book.
if we study the history of Western civilization, treachery all along.
And
every
you see
nation-
it repetitive.
Repetitive.
It's
Till today.
annoying.
Till
That's
today.
what I'm saying. Like, so don't be surprised, please.
It's almost it's like in the holy code that you have to be treacherous. It's allowed as long as they're going. Right? That they say that.
If you're not grounded in the akhirah,
Yeah.
you can't hold your promise.
Yeah.
Against the dunya,
Yeah.
you know, the dunya has a lure. And if my heart is not really grounded, what makes me say no? You can kill my child, I can't kill your child. What Salah means.
But we were told, but that's the first story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
What it, and we were told, be like, and we were told in the end times, be like the second son of
Yes.
Adam, who said, I'm not going to raise my hand. You kill me, it's okay. I'm
And
afraid.
when I fight according to what pleases Allah. This is what Salahuddin fought. He is not a monster. That's the difference. He fought, he liberated Jerusalem. But you see, the big difference. This is how Muslims, this is our legacy.
Yeah,
This is how Umar ibn Khattab did it. This is how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it. Right?
And then I think our scholars and Sheikh